Welcome. Today we're going to do a level up with Lumio, how to supercharge your lessons to get your students engaged. Today's session, we're just going to dive a little bit deeper and give you some more great ideas so that you can go back and start building for back to school next year. Let me go ahead and start. I would love it if you guys would go to hellosmart.com and you're going to join as a guest into my classroom. My class code is 351595. And the reason I'm having you do this is I'm going to have you come in and at first we're going to experience this as students. I really want you to see just how engaging and interactive my lesson can be. You can familiarize yourself with those tools that your students will be using so that when you do deliver a lesson, you're able to help them the first few times with the tools that they're offered in a Lumio lesson. Robin, I see you have a question. Do you want to come off mute and ask?
No, I found it. Thank you. I was looking for the code, but my bar was covering it up.
It's happened to me. And just like Robin, if you guys have questions, please raise your hand or come off mute or put that in the chat. Jeffrey is there to really assist any questions that pop up in the chat so that I can, address those. We can make sure you walk away feeling like you got the most out of this session. He also went ahead and put those directions in the chat for the hellosmart.com class code 351595. One thing I want to go ahead and direct your attention to is on my left-hand side, the two little people icon. I call that my classroom management icon. As you guys are joining my class, I can click on that and I can see my guests joining into my class.
Excuse me, Gretchen.
Yes.
When I try to sign in, it's showing me because it's the same code from yesterday. It stayed there. Is that okay if I click on that one?
Absolutely. Actually, that is a great point to bring up. It is the same code as yesterday because when you have a Lumio account, your class code will never change. So my class code for any lesson I deliver will always be 351595, which is really helpful for your kiddos in your classroom because they're going to learn that code right away. And I mean, you can even get them into the habit of just joining your class the moment they come in, unpack, open up their devices, and they're signed in, ready to go. So that's a great point to bring up. Your class code does not change for you. As I'm in that classroom management, I can also go up to where my name and class ID, I can tap on that arrow, and I have several options of how to have my students sign in. They can either go to the hellosmart.com with the code, they can join with a QR code, or I've got this great option now that I can copy that link and I can simply throw it in the chat for you guys. And you could just click on that link and join right into my class. So a lot of different options of how I want to get my students connected. As people are still joining, I'm going to go ahead and quickly introduce myself. If you were not with me yesterday, my name is Gretchen Simmons. I am a training specialist from SMART. 10 years in education. I just left the classroom last year, March. I was working as a 5th grade reading language arts teacher in the Cypress Fairbanks School District. So I'm with you guys. I still feel like I'm much more on the teacher side than I am on this training side. So no question is too small for me. You'll see my email at the bottom. Please, let me know if you have any questions or you need an idea or a tip or a trick. I'm here for you guys. And so here is our power plan today on how we are going to level up. First, we're going to go in as students and we're going to experience the lesson that I have prepared for you today. Then we're going to create a Lumio lesson together. We're going to build together, start you off with something that you could take back to your classroom in August and deliver. And then we're going to just kind of reflect on how using Lumio really takes your lesson to the next level for your students. And as always, we want to make sure that we're touching and on the t-test and following kind of where we want to be in our progress as a teacher. We want to move from that proficient over to the accomplished on making sure that we have questions that are going to really encourage students to engage in those complex higher order thinking. We really want them to get to that next level of blooms. And I'm really focusing on this today in this lesson, how we can build something and yet we want to keep that learning going. We want to keep that thought process going and building with our students and taking them to the next level. And Lumio can really do that for you. I'll also always like to touch on differentiation. This is a great platform to bring in that differentiation into your classroom lessons that you need for your students, because we all know students do not learn the same way. They do not all have the same needs. So we need to make sure as teachers that we are addressing how students learn. So let's start us off with a game right away. I'm going to bring you guys into my lesson and get you engaged from the get-go with a superstore. So you'll see that you can always press start and start your lesson right away. I can also click on model activity, and I'm given two different options. So we're doing a science lesson right here, and we're working on consumers and producers. And this might be something that we've already talked about, consumers and producers, and maybe I'm ready to have them review a little bit of content. So you're going to simply move those monkeys into the place of where they need to go. They're either going to be in consumer or producer. So I'm going to start moving them. Now, I have this set on instant check. That means if my student tries to put it in the wrong place, it's going to shoot it right back out. So they're going to be able to check themselves and have that ownership of their learning as they're moving along. While you guys are playing this, I can go to the top of my screen and I can click on view progress. This is one of the reasons I love a super sort game. This gives me an activity dashboard. I can toggle on show results, and in real time, I'm seeing who has not started, how many are in progress. I have one student that is completed. So this is great for me to have up on my board, this page, if I want. So I can say, okay, I need my 5 students to really get started on that game-based activity. I see that someone has completed. That's fantastic. As my students are completing this super sort, I'm getting insight into their learning. I'm seeing right now the 5 most frequent incorrect answers. I'm seeing that hawk and fruit are incorrect answers. I could also toggle over to the 5 most correct answers. This is great for me. This lets me know I need to go back and reteach fruit when I'm talking about consumers and producers. We really need to spend a little time talking about fruit on that. So I already know something that I need to go back and reteach with my students. I can also see the average score and time on the activity. And if I want on a separate teaching device, not on my board or at night, I can click on student progress on the left-hand side. And obviously it gives me that warning, don't show this if you're, in front of your students. I can click on this and I can see each individual student. I can see how long it took them to take the test, or the game. And I can see how many answers they got incorrect and correct on their first time trying it out. So I can also click on my student and I can go in and I can see Adelina got a perfect score. She got 8 out of 10 correct on that first attempt. I can see the ones that she missed. So that's really great. And that I'm able to go back in and go and say, maybe I need to reteach her on this. If I have a student that got more incorrect, I'm able to go in and pull them for small group and reteach that lesson to just a certain number of students. I can also tell a lot, like if they missed a lot and it only took them 20 seconds, I can have that conversation with my student, maybe we need to slow down when we're playing this game-based activity. So I do love that we have 3 game-based activities, the super sort, match them up, and rank order, that give us that student insight on their progress. Okay, so following up from that game-based activity, I simply took a blank page, I added a shape, some text and images, and now I have my students having to create a food chain with the animal pictures I've given them, and they're going to add an arrow to show the path from the producer to the consumers and prey to the predators. And I really like this because this brings in that element of critical thinking and that higher level thinking that I need for my students. Now, obviously, this would be something that I would do towards the end of my consumer producer unit, because this is pretty high up on the level of thinking. I also need to decide at this moment how I want to push this out to my students. Now, when I created this, made it an individual handout, which means every student gets a digital copy of this and they would all be building their own food chain. Or I could make it a group workspace where I put them into digital groups and they work on this together. or we could do this as a whole class whiteboard where we're all contributing together. But I purposefully chose not to pick it ahead of time because you guys know as well as I do that we never know where our students are during the day, and our lessons can change in a moment's notice on how we need to deliver something to our students. What I love about Lumio is it gives me the power to do that. So if I kind of saw from the game-based activity that maybe we are missing a few and we might need to go back and talk about it, or maybe they need that partner help, I'm going to go over to that class management icon again. I'm going to tap on it, and now I can decide how I want to push this out to my students. I don't think my kiddos are ready to do this on their own, so I'm going to pick a group workspace where they're going to have each other to work, collaborate, and talk together. And I'm going to put them into groups of, let's do groups of 5. And it digitally puts my students into groups. I don't have to sit there and plan out the groups, but here's what I love most. If I know that Reagan and Kathy don't always work well together, I can easily move Kathy over, put Jeff in, and I'm ready to start the workspace. So I'm going to click Start Workspace, and now my students have access into this creating the food chain. While they are working on this food chain together, I can go in and check on them. So I've got all my teams here. I can click on the team and I can go in and look at how they're doing. Now, I'm in teams 1 and I want to talk about it for a second. So I took this arrow and it is infinitely cloned so that they can put as many arrows as they want. They can also click on the arrow and they can turn it to the direction that they need by the dot. This is important for your students to know how these tools work so that they're able to do this when you get to this point in the lesson. I'd love for you guys to go in and play around, move that the pictures around to where they would need to be, and just kind of play around and see how it feels so your students you'll be able to help your students when they're doing this. I can toggle over up in the top right-hand corner to the next team. I can go into team 2 and I can see how teams 2 is doing. I can also add instant feedback where I can come in and I can say, get started. And all of a sudden, team 2 sees my feedback and they know, okay, Miss Simmons is checking in on us. She wants us to get started. Another option I did for my students is I added a audio recording of myself with the directions. So maybe my students need to hear these directions again. Maybe I have students with accommodations that need that text orally read to them. I've added that. I've helped them out by adding those audio instructions over there. I could have also added audio instructions that maybe gives them a hint or maybe helps them get started on this food chain. So there's a lot of different ways that I can bring in that differentiation.
Antonio downtown, located at 1200 Brooklyn Avenue in Suite 115. If you are having a life-threatening emergency, please hang up and dial 911. If you are a physician or
so I'm going to keep going into the next team.
Press 2. If you are calling with questions or need to change your existing.
And there we go. Thank you. And I'm able to check in on all my teams if I'd like for the food chain. So I love that maybe I'm working with team 4 in the back of the room at a small group table. Maybe these are my students that need, me sitting there prompting them as they're going on. But I can also be checking in on all my other teams, giving them instant feedback if I need to in the moment. So I love that option. Now, keeping that learning going. The next thing I brought in was a ready-made resource, a graphic organizer, and I brought in the thinking frame. This time, I chose ahead of time to make it an individual handout. And I did this because I'm definitely going to take a grade on this for my students. So when I click on student progress, and you're going to see that you can start the assignment by opening it up. And when you do, I see your name pop up on my screen. So I know what students have opened up their assignment and they are now working on that thinking frame. I also have the option to go down and I have a teacher handout. So maybe I want to pull up the teacher handout and give instructions where they can see it. Maybe I even want to get them started on it. So I could bring in my text and say, how are we changing? And I can get them started on what I want them to write. But if you look at these questions, I picked these text questions myself. So you're able to really customize this ready-made graphic organizer to the questions that you need. And if you notice, a lot of these questions pertain back to the STAR test in ways that they might be asked about a food chain when they're doing the STAR test. The best part about this is because I made this an individual handout, I'm able to go in just like my group workspace and check in on my students. I can see the progress they're making. I can give them feedback. If they might need help naming a producer that could be added to this food chain, I could maybe give them hints and text it out and they can see it in real time. What I want to tell you is don't forget that in a Lumio lesson, when your students do work in Lumio lesson, that work now lives there forever. So you are able to go home at night and you are able to sit on your couch and you can go back into these individual handouts and take grades for, how your students did on this work. Or you can look in and see where you might need to pull students and review or reteach. So with that being said, your student work now lives forever in your Lumio lessons. I want to remind you that if you have several class periods, you're going to want to make copies of this Lumio lesson for as many class periods as you have. And you'll just want to rename those, food chain class period 1, food chain class period 2, and so on, so that now you have your student work organized into the different class periods and you can always go back in. Going into, I wanted to show you an example of a math lesson. Once again, this is our ready-made resource. This is a fraction manipulative. I simply added just the text at the top, what directions, how many equivalent fractions can your group make? So I already knew in my mind I wanted to make this a group workspace. I'm easily going to click on the icon, click group workspace, 5 teams, and it's that quickly that I've started my group workspace. And now I might set a timer and my students are going to see how many equivalent fractions they can make in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. And they're all getting to work on this digital manipulative together. I could have also made this an individual handout and just had them all working on this digital manipulative on their own. Totally up to them. But as always, I can scroll through my teams and I can see how they're doing on this digital manipulative. And you'll notice the fraction bars were infinitely cloned, and so they can move it up as many times as they want. They can also add text using that A over on your left-hand side of your tools. You can add shapes and lines and images, or you can erase. Another thing you're going to notice is there's this book here with this little megaphone. This is our immersive reader. This is another great tool for those students that need those accommodations. That will read the text from Lumio to your students. It's also great if you have ESL students. It does translate. So I really love having that immersive reader tool, and I will show you guys how to make sure you can turn that on for your students. So we've worked on the digital manipulative of the fraction bars. Now we're ready to play a game. This is another type of game that offers that dashboard. This is your match the fraction. I'm going to model the activity while you guys can go ahead and get started. They're going to go ahead and move the fraction to the little shield for the night and then match it up with the fraction. They get it right, it goes in. If they do one that is wrong, it shoots them back out because I have it on instant check. I can go up to the top bar, click on view progress. I got my digital dashboard. I'm going to toggle on show results. And as my students are completing this fraction match 'em up game, I'm able to watch in real time and see as my students go through. One thing I want you to notice is on that match 'em up, I've added fraction pictures and text. So I'm really taking that thinking to the next level where they have to look at the pictures, match it up with the text. Sometimes I wrote it out in word form, lots of different ways, having my students practice those fractions so they're seeing all the different ways. And as they're taking it, I can see the correct answers here, which is great. Clearly, my students have an understanding of fractions and they are ready to move on with the unit. Once again, I can always go to the left side, click on student progress, and I can take a look at my student progress. So from that game, and this is probably one of my favorite things that I like to build for my students, because honestly, you guys, you could do this in any content area. Instead of just making questions where they just answer the correct answer, I've taken, once again, that critical thinking, and instead of them just answer the correct answer, they have to find the mistake in problems that I've given them. So I took our ready-made graphic organizer, it's a 6-box, and I simply added a question with an answer, and they've got to find where the mistake is. So that's really asking them to tap into that higher level thinking, and they've got to find the mistake. And then I added where I want them to put the change down here. So simply took a graphic organizer, added my text and my questions, and they've got to find the change. This would work for reading language arts. You could do prefixes, suffixes. You could do parts of speech sentences. This would work for science. You could definitely put questions with answers in here, or pictures, whatever you want. And you could have your students have to find the mistake. And students really like this because it almost feels like a game type activity for them, because they've got to be that super sleuth and figure out where the mistake is. Once again, I can tap on my classroom management tool and I can decide how I want to put that out to my students. And just to show you, because I know I got a lot of secondary teachers here, I want to show you just how I can work 4 different grade levels. I did what's the mistake and the rule, and this is for my high school teachers. So not only do they have to find the mistake and add the change, but they've got to tap in and tell me what the rule is that applies to that type of equation. Full disclosure, please don't ask me how to solve these. I had to get my high school kiddos to help me on this and figure this out. But for my secondary teachers, you can definitely rock this in your math lesson. Going down to the next one. I love this. I took this graphic organizer, ready-made. Now, this was actually a cause and effect graphic organizer. But you know what? I saw how I could use this in my math lesson, and I took out the text of cause and effects. I added my own text and put my own little spin on it. And these are great for any grade level math lesson, and that your students are going to solve an equation. Then they're going to explain the reasoning, which we know this is becoming really important for our students, and that they can get the right answer, but they need to be able to tell us how they got that right answer. And so I'm going to have them explain the reasoning, and then they're going to create a new problem that represents that reasoning for them. Here, once again, is taking them to that next level of thinking. Now, how would I differentiate this for my students? I might use a sentence stem here for my little ones to get them started, because a lot of our younger grades really aren't familiar on how to explain how they got a problem. So I could definitely type in here and maybe leave blanks of a sentence stem on explaining their reasoning. I could even provide a word bank by adding some words in here to move into that sentence, so they're simply just moving it in. I could have also added those audio instructions that they can record them. You could record yourself kind of explaining how you want them to do this. So there are lots of different ways that you can really accommodate your students and their needs for their learning and make this your own for your classroom. But I do love that I took a cause and effect graphic organizer and turned it into a great math lesson for my students. Okay, so let's quick touch on science, and then we'll continue to move on. So brought in another match 'em up game, and I want to show the model of the activity. Now, this is for those secondary teachers. I wanted to touch on the periodic table. I went ahead and found these images and the model of the atoms for my students, and I just brought in these images. So what I love about our game-based activities is you can add text, but you can also add images. Now, if my students need to see it closer up, you just go to that blue little box on the image, you click on it, and it magnifies it for you. And so they can really look at that closely. They're going to simply move it down to the black circles. If they didn't get it right, it pushes it back out. I have this on instant check. I have the ability when I'm building this, I can put this on check when prompted, meaning at the end, and they can actually see which ones they got right and which ones they didn't. But I do love that I'm able to go up to view progress and check on my student progression as they're working on this. So that's a really great thing. And I got to tell you guys, especially for my secondary teachers out there, High school kiddos love these game-based activities. This is where you really get them engaged because you got to understand these older kiddos, they don't always get to play games or do review in a fun way. So how great to bring in that engagement for your older students and make the learning just a little bit more fun for them. Taking it to the next level, once again, brought in one of those ready-made resources, this graphic organizer, made it an individual handout. I can click on student progress. As my students open it, they're able to see. I can click on Jeff's, and we could either talk about it as a whole class, or I could have added audio instructions. But in this two table, we're going to look at what molecules can you build using hydrogen, what molecules can you build using nitrogen. So a simple graphic organizer, I added 2 sentences, and now I have a great digital lesson for my students to complete. And they're really having to, take what they know about hydrogen and build molecules using that. Okay, so I have built all these different lessons. Let's go ahead and move into our Lumio dashboards and try it out so we can kind of get a feel for building some of these things. What I need you to do is you're going to go up to your left-hand corner. There's 3 lines at the top. You're going to click on that, and you're going to click on that blue bar that says Leave Class. You're actually going to leave my class as students now. And I can click on my classroom management tool, and I see as my students are leaving my class. If I've got some students that forget to leave, I can always go down to Edit. I can click Select All, and I can click Remove. And that quickly takes everybody out of my class. And this is really important, especially if you have several class periods. You want to make sure your class has been cleared out. So when your new class comes in, they can join your class. Because remember from the beginning, our class code never changes. Think of it as a classroom and that you've got to have all your students leave before your next class comes in so you can teach that class according to their needs. And so for all of my SAISD teachers, you have your Lumio through your Google account. So you can simply go to your Google Drive and you can click on New and click on More, and you can access your Lumio through there, or you can go over to the waffle, scroll down and click on Lumio there. And you can go ahead and get into your teacher dashboard, your Lumio dashboard. For my teachers that are joining us from other districts, if you're not sure if your Lumio is hooked up through your Google account, you can always go to lum.io on a new tab and go up to the right-hand corner and click on teacher sign-in, and you can get into your Lumio dashboard. So I'm going to give everybody a second to do that. And you'll know you're in the right place when you land on your Lumio dashboard and it looks similar to mine. You'll have your name up in the left-hand corner. You'll see my library, Lumio library. You'll see your class ID. If you're having troubles getting to your Lumio dashboard, go ahead and let Jeffrey know in the chat and he can assist you there, or he can let me know and I can help you verbally. And as you guys are coming in, I'm not going to go through all of the dashboard tools, but just quickly, you'll notice in the right-hand corner where you have your sign in, you have the question mark where you can get resources. That graduation hat's a great place for training resources. If as we're going today and maybe you try to build something and you're like, oh, I forgot what Gretchen said, you can always access that graduation hat. That'll take you to our training resources, and you can find that section where you're stuck and watch a little quick video or read about how to get going again. You also have your class ID and your link. Your edit class, one thing I want to show you, if you might have not joined my class yesterday, is when you click on edit class, you go down to the bottom, there's that manage immersive reader. This is that tool for your students that might need that accommodation of having the text read to them. You're going to want to click on that and make sure it is on green, that you've enabled that. That allows for that tool to show up on your student's side. If it's not turned on, your students won't be able to see that little book that's able to read that text or translate that text for them. Going across, you'll have a Visit Google Drive. Up at the top, right now, you'll see we're in my library. These are all the lessons that I have created or I have saved to my library. If I click on Lumio library, this is awesome. This is where you have all of those ready-made lessons, ready-made activities, graphic organizers, manipulatives, tons of great resources for you that have already been made that all you have to do is add it to your library, and then you can edit them, you can change them up, you can add what you need to make your lessons really meet the needs of your class. So great place to kind of explore and check out. Clicking back on my library, we're going to go over to the side under my name. Import, I can bring in any existing content I have, my PDFs, my PowerPoints, Google Docs, whatever I want. But I'm going to go over to that next one, the new, the plus sign with the new, and I'm going to click on that because we're going to get started on making something. So we're going to go down and we've got all of our different ways that we can start building our lesson. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the game-based activity. We're going to click on game-based activity. And now if you're in here and you're like, oh, I got this great idea of this lesson that I want to try building, I want you to feel free to go and start building and exploring how you can do that. If you want to follow along with me and really just get a feel for how it feels to build a lesson that I showed you today, and then you want to go back and change it on your own time, follow along with me, totally up to you. One thing I loved about my game-based activities is I can click on any of these graduation hats and I can see what the game looks like, which I really love the option. If I have content in mind, but I don't know how I want to deliver it to my students in a game, I can go through and click on those graduation hats and just see, an example of how I could use it. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a match 'em up today because I want to have an activity dashboard and I want to see. So I'm going to click on match 'em up. And it's going to get it started for me. And just for the sake of being able to build, we're going to do a math lesson. But if you are reading language arts teacher, you could start building this with prefixes, suffixes, parts of speech. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? You could do matching up the part of speech with the example. If you are a science teacher, you saw that periodic table, you could match those things up there. You could do a vocab with definition, kind of up to you. So I'm going to go and I've got my two category names. So right here, I'm going to do fraction, and I'm going to do equivalent. Let's do it that way. Now, I'm going to mix it up between, because I really liked how I was able to bring in images and text for my students. So I might start off with doing an image. Now, if I want to add an image instead of text, I'm going to go over to that little box with the mountain, and I'm going to click on that. And I could either pull in an image from my computer that I might already have saved. This is great if maybe you have some math like task cards already like saved into your computer. You can pull those. If you have those periodic table pictures or those atom pictures saved to your computer, you can pull those. But I'm going to go to the online images and I'm going to click in and I'm going to say 1/3. And when I pull it up, it gives me lots of different examples of 1/3. Oh, here's a picture. I like that one. I'm going to click on it. It's going to put it here and I'm going to click OK. And now I've got it saved there. So going up to what that'll match up with, I'm going to do 1/3. Going to the next one, I might go here and I might say 2/4. I'm going over here. I'm going to do the image of 1/2. And I can really mix it up on images and text. I might go to the next one and I might say 3/4. And this time I'm going to write it out. Ooh, that's big. 3/4. Going down to the next one. Let's do a thing. Let's do a 1/2. That'll give us a picture. don't like those pictures. I'm going to go back and change this. Let's do one. Did I already do 1/4? I might have already done 1/4. Maybe I didn't. It's not giving me what I want. Okay, we'll change it up. We'll go back and I'll just do 1/4 here. And let's do an equivalent. Let's do say about, there we go. So I've got some images mixed in with the word form and the math form. Over here on my settings, I have check answers. I have it set right now on instantly. I could toggle it on to when prompted, meaning at the end, they're going to have all their answers checked. Totally up to that. I'm going to go down to that blue box where it says next. I'm going to click on that. Now I love this because it offers lots of great different themes that I can use that are already made. I can also go with just a simple gray, or you'll notice in a lot of my games that I picked custom backgrounds. And that was real quick and easy, and I could customize all the different images. But for today, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pick, the superheroes. I'm going to pick the superheroes for my match 'em up. Now remember, any game-based activity you build, you can always go back in and edit. You could add more to it. You could change up the text. You could change the theme of the background. And you'll notice it's adding my activity. So now I am building that lesson. I can go in, I can preview, I can see how it looks for my students. I like the way it looks. I'm going to X out of that. I have the ability to edit that activity. Now I'm ready to add that little, let's add that manipulative in there so my students have that if they need to use that manipulative, the fraction bar. So I'm going to go over to my left-hand side, and I've got my first activity, and I'm going to go down to the bottom, click on that blue plus bar, and I'm going to go to manipulatives in the green, and I'm going to get those fraction tiles and bring those in for my students. And this requires really nothing for me to do, except I want to add directions at the top, some text. And I'm going to say, how many equivalent fractions can your group make in 60 seconds? So I might actually put that in there. And I'm going to highlight this, make it bold. I like doing the white on the blue. Make it bigger. Oop, need to stretch it out. Made that a little too big. I'm going to put it where I want it. Now, this is really important. If you're going to have your students doing work on any of these slides, you need to lock down anything that you put on there in place. So this text, if I deliver this to my students, they can move this text all over the place, and I guarantee you they will. So what I do is I click on the text. I go over to that blue arrow. I click on that and I go down to lock and I lock it into place. Now my students can't move it if they try. I have the ability that if I want to re-edit it, change it, I just click on that lock and I unlock it in the moment. I can change it up. You'll also notice I have my editing tools up at the top. I can add shapes, lines, images. I have that math equation editor, and it also works for chemistry. I can add more text. I can erase. If I keep going across the top, I've got that magic wand. I can decide right now how I want to push it out. I know I'm going to make it a group workspace, so I can click on group workspace and it's already ready to go as being delivered to groups. I also have that audio instruction tool where I could click on that and add audio to it. Another thing that I really like is if I want to move this and you said, maybe I want this to be my first part of the lesson, I can easily move my slides to where I want them to be when I deliver them. So we've added that manipulative, we've added a game. Let's quick add that 6 square box of the what's the mistake. I'm gonna go back down to that plus sign, click on that, go to graphic organizers, and I'm gonna scroll down till I find that 6 box right here. I love this one. I use this in a lot of different lessons. So I've added this graphic organizer to my math lesson, and this is where I'm going to create that what's the mistake. And here's what I love about this. I'm going to create this what's the mistake, and I'm going to add that change with the line at the bottom. I can reuse this in a lot of different lessons. So this could just be my template that I'm going to build, and I'm just going to keep reusing it in other lessons, which will be great. But I'm going to go up and I'm going to click on that A and add text, and I'm going to write what a mistake. Oop. And I love this concept because I'm really able to use this in any subject area. I've got it where I want it. Remember, I'm going to lock it down. I like adding that little cute detective. So I'm going to go up to my shapes, lines, and images, click on the mountain with the image, and I'm going to type in detective clip art. And there he is. I got a ton, and I'm going to move him over. Oop, he's too big. Got to make him smaller. So I'm going to click on that little dot. Oop, make him smaller, put him where I want him. Now, I want to put him on the other side, so I'm going to click on that down arrow. I'm just going to click duplicate, move the other one over there, and now I'm going to lock it into place. And now I'm ready to add the text, but the first thing I want to do is add that where I wrote change with the line on the bottom so they can always change it up. Click on that A again, click down here, and I'm going to write change and give it a line. I'm going to put it where I want it. Maybe I want to make it just a little bigger. Okay, once I like where it looks and how it looks, once again, I'm not going to do this 6 different times where I type it out. So I'm just going to go over, click on it, get my blue square, down arrow, duplicate. I'm literally going to duplicate it 6 times. That way, now all I do is move it into place in the 6 boxes. And then I'm going to lock them in place where I want them. And so in the matter of, I think, 1 minute, we've already built our template that we can use any subject, any grade level. The best part about this is I can share this lesson with my colleagues. They can take this lesson, save it to their library, and now they can alter it and edit it and change it up and make it work for their classroom. So, and it never affects the lesson that you originally built. So wouldn't your teachers love if you have this built and now you share it out to them and they get to have this and they can work on this? Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding the problem in here. So for the what's the mistake? Now, if you're a reading language arts teacher, you could add in a sentence and they could fix the sentence. So I'm just going to quickly show you some examples as you are building math, language arts, science, all the different ways we could use this. So here's my language arts. I'm only going to have 1 mistake in there. Now I'm going to add a math one. Let's do. Remember, I need to lock it into place. Now I'm going to do remember, you could also add images on here. I could easily come in here and add an image. Let me do this, go over here, and I might say nice cube clip art. I like to add clip art because it really gives exactly what I want. I'm going to shrink that. Lock it in place, and then I'm going to add some text saying this is an example of a gas. So being able to really make this work for any grade level is great. And let's just add one more. Let's do well, and I love this 6 box because this what's the mistake? What a great opportunity. I could use this as a bell ringer every morning, where each morning they just do one square, and on a Friday we talk about all of the squares. So lots of different ways you could use this what's the mistake. But here's my example. I could also add audio instructions. I'm ready to push this. I know it's going to be an individual handout, so I'm going to click on that magic wand, click on magic individual handout, and it's ready to go. So in the span of about 10 minutes, we were able to
Gretchen?
make, yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We have a question. It was asked, can you put a sound in a box? So can you have multiple sounds on the page?
Not at this time, but that would be an awesome feature to definitely request. I think that would be really, really great request. You are able to add hyperlinks if you needed to put a hyperlink in the box, but you couldn't add a sound for each and every one, unfortunately. Great question though, Reagan. Okay, so I'm done with my lesson. I've built my lesson on fractions. I'm going to go up. It says untitled right now. I'm going to clear that and I'm going to put title of fractions. It's saving. I'm done with my lesson. So I'm going to click finish editing. And now I've got my fraction lesson here. Now, real quick, I could go down to those 3 dots. I can click on those 3 dots. I can always go back and edit. I can rename this lesson, but here's my favorite, the share link. When I click on that share link, I can go give a copy of this lesson to other teachers. I simply just copy that link and I can put that in an email. I can put that on a chat. And now my teachers, my colleagues are able to take that link, save it to their library. They can edit, change up this lesson, and then they can deliver it how they need to, and it never affects mine. And when you really think of the power of this tool, it is amazing. If you have a team of 5 teachers and you all create one lesson, you come together, you share your lessons, you've built one lesson, but you're leaving with 4 more lessons. So a really great and powerful tool. I also have the ability to add the student share link. So I can share this link of this lesson out to my students on Google Classroom or wherever, Canva, wherever they need to, Canvas, and then they're able to access this lesson. And the last thing in those 3 dots menu is the make a copy. This is where I was talking about. If you have multiple class periods, you're going to want to make a copy for every class period you have and then rename it fractions class period 1, fractions class period 2. So we did it. We created a lesson that really brings in that critical thinking, that collaboration with your students. It takes them to that next level of higher level thinking. Lots of different great things. I'm able to differentiate it for my students, all different types. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish out our session. You don't need to rejoin my class. And I'm just going to scroll down. You'll notice that my lesson is built a lot like a Google slide presentation or a PowerPoint, and that I can scroll down through my things. And let's talk about continuing your Lumio journey. So we have lots of different great options for you to really become a part of a Lumio community. We have a Facebook Lumio educators group. I really recommend you joining this. Teachers are always on our Facebook group asking questions, giving ideas, giving lessons, tips, tricks. You have a lot of us former educators that work for Smart Now on there to give answering questions. So that is a great place, especially like maybe at 10 o'clock at night, you have a question. I guarantee you, if you put it out on that Facebook group, you'll probably get an answer at 10 o'clock at night. So a great place to go. We also have the Become the Ambassador. And I want to take a second and talk about this because literally right now, I'm going to give you the option and the chance to sign up for the Ambassador program, which is a fantastic community to be a part of. I really, really encourage you to join this. And it takes no time at all. And you do not have to be an expert in Lumio to become a part of this ambassador community. And what it does is it's going to connect you with educators across the globe. And they're going to give you tips, tricks, ideas, resources, lessons. And we're also going to be able to give you certificates. You can earn badges, bronze, silver, gold. You'll be able to get some sneak peeks on what's coming in Lumio. You'll be asked to events that we do with Lumio, lots of different things. So you can either grab that QR code or you can just go right here. And what I'll do is I'm going to copy this and put this right in the chat, and you can jump on this link and it'll take you right to our ambassador application. Here's the best part. If you built the lesson alongside with me, you're ready to go. You can use that lesson to apply for ambassadorship. That's all you needed to do. So you're just going to go right now and you're going to tell us about yourself. You're going to fill out your name, school name, what district you're from, your title. Tell us, what your vision for using Lumio in your classroom is and what other technology you use. But right here, it's the most important. It says under Tell Us Your Why, submit an example of how you're using one of Smart Tools. That's what you just did today with me. You just built that lesson. You put in a graphic organizer. You put in a game-based activity. You're ready to go. That's all you need to become an ambassador with Lumio. And I've actually stopped our session a little early so you could take this time and sign up to become an ambassador. So what a great opportunity. And just finish filling this out. And your final word, you're going to click submit. And within a couple days, you're going to get an email. And it's all you have to do is open that email and there'll be a button that says click here to join, and you'll get right into that ambassador community. And what a great time. I think this is the perfect time to become an ambassador because you've got the whole summer to explore the community, listen to other educators, come to events that we offer, lots of different things. So great opportunity. As I'm talking right now, you can be filling out this application. And what you're going to do is you're simply going to go into that share link of the lesson that you just built. You'll copy it and you'll just simply paste it in this box right here where it says share a link of your Lumio lesson. So no time at all, you'll become an ambassador. And as you guys are applying to become an ambassador, I'm just going to finish out this. I'm going to give you a place of where you can go and get Lumio resources. This is a great place to go. You can access our Lumio YouTube channel. Guys, I love our Lumio YouTube channel. We've got lots of past webinars that we recorded, we put on there for you. You can fast forward through the fluff talk and get to the really good stuff of just what you want to learn about Lumio. We also offer webinars. And in fact, July 18th and 19th, Smart is putting on a Lumio Palooza where we're going to offer lots of webinars for you guys to attend. You can register for them and they're about 30 to 45 minutes and they're all different types of Lumio lessons. Some are content specific, some are more grade level specific, but you can check out the library of all the different webinars that are going to be going on.